We're still walking very slowly through Paul's doxology. It's really just about the final things that he writes to Timothy in what we have as First Timothy chapter 6. We talked about God, and we talked about God the Blessed. Okay, now we're ready for the next couple of words. The blessed and only ruler. Now, you have to interpret this. You have to think of this with Paul's culture in mind, or else it doesn't even. There's no. Well, okay. So let's talk about it in Paul's culture. In Paul's culture, there was a hierarchy of rulers, and at the top was the Caesar. In Paul's day, the Caesar, we in America, we think of the president as the top. I mean, he is the most powerful man in the world, all that. Well, our president, although let's be honest, our president is a powerful person, but that's not even close to the power of the Caesar. His will could override whatever he wanted. That's what happened. There is. It's pretty unfair, to be honest with you. Well, in fact, the Caesars were worshipped as deities. Huh. Ooh. I don't care who the president is. I'm not worshiping them. And you shouldn't either. But the Caesars were worshipped, and many of them demanded to be worshipped. They literally lived above the law. Now, beneath the Caesar were kings who they ruled a kingdom, an area. There were governors who were an extension of the rule of these kings. And then there were military, so there was this big, deep, thick hierarchy of rulers in Paul's day. We don't have that. And like I said, I'm grateful we don't have that. And yet, sometimes we feel as though we're living in a world where some people believe themselves to be Caesars. Well, Paul says, hey, don't forget this. There is actually only one ruler. I mean, he says, the only ruler. And we know that if God is who he says he is, he has to be the only ruler, the ultimate ruler, the ruler who rules every other ruler. Well, we don't sometimes believe that, in the political arena, we have pretty successfully pulled religious belief out of the political system and political world. And so now it's down to the pragmatics of whose policies work and whose policies don't work. I'm not a political scientist. I am a political pessimist. So I don't believe government is our answer. I believe, okay, time for my political opinion. I don't care what party you're a part of. Here is where this is the watershed for me. If those in political authority, and I'm carefully not saying political power, although there is power with their authority, but if those people are truly servants of the people they represent, that's the best way for politics to work. When politicians seem to not believe they represent their people and the concerns that their people have, the needs and the security of those people, but they are rulers, it becomes all about power and not so much, if any at all, about service. I've already told you about my friend Mel Rice, who told me he was, although he was a Tulsa County commissioner and in a place of authority and respected, he said, if I ever feel I'm a politician, I have to resign and quit. I'm a servant of the public. I'm a public servant. Okay, so we get that off my chest. Now, back to the only ruler. Yeah, I think there's some strong political implications. And for us as believers, I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a socialist or a communist or a free market or I don't care where you stand. We must never lose track of the fact that God is the only ruler, the ultimate ruler, not just the best ruler. In reality, he is the only ruler. If I live as though God is the only ruler, what would that look like? Well, you don't need me to tell you that, but you do need to think about it. Okay, now here is my I have two big things that connect with God as the only ruler. First of all, our political situation has a direct impact on our lives, but no politician, even public servant, has the final say. Only God does, because he is the only ruler. Now, here's the second thing. If God is the only ruler, and this may be, I think, actually more important, is I can't be the only ruler. You can't be the only ruler. See, when you bring it down to street level, it comes down to, so who rules me? Well, we're all bent and broken because of sin. And as bent and broken people, we want to rule ourselves. We want to be the ultimate ruler who decides what's good and bad, what I am going to do and what I'm not going to do. And we want that, the power of that decision for ourselves. We don't want outside rulers. This is my confession to you, is I intellectually really don't want to any longer be the CEO of my life, the ruler with a capital R of my life. And yet, I find myself living as though I am. So what's the answer to this? This is a really deep and complex subject in terms of the psychology of it. I can tell you on one level, it's simple. It's actually elegant. Here's the answer. Remind yourself that you are not the ruler. God is. Now, the complexity of it is in how we do that, how often we do that, what words we use, what images we associate. I mean, and to be honest with you, a lot of my counseling has to do with helping people gain a different understanding of God as the only ruler. Well, okay, the only ruler, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, I talked about the hierarchy of ruler in Paul's day. He's just emphasizing here. Caesar is not the King of Kings. Virtually all the Caesars thought they were, but they're not. It's it's really only a fantasy, because there is a King of Kings, and most translations are going to capitalize the first king and lowercase the second king in that phrase. The same thing with Lord of Lords. It's just a reiteration. Don't let any individual or entity fool you or attract you into believing that they are the sovereign, because only God is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's a great thing to grasp and hold on to when the kings and the lords don't seem to be working in your favor, and they don't seem to be conforming to what we understand as basic morality, let alone fairness. Okay. King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I love Handel's Messiah, and I love the Hallelujah. Holy smokes. And when the choir, they boom, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I love it. It gives me chills, which, everybody has different tastes in music, but man, do I love how the concept of King of Kings and Lord of Lords is matched by the power of the melody and harmony and the meter. And okay, move on, Steve. Now listen, he is the only ruler, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And then in verse 16, who alone is immortal. Now, there is a sense in which our souls are immortal. I think it might be wiser to think of our souls as eternal rather than immortal. You see, because we are mortal beings, meaning we had a beginning, a birth, and we will have an end, death. With God, there was no beginning and there is no end. One of the things about his immortality that is so different than our mortality, once you get past the death thing, beginning and ending, is we as mortal beings are bound by time. You can't make more of it, and you can't make it go any faster than it goes. We're bound by time, and he is not. There's a whole lot to that, and I'm going to come back to it briefly, I promise, next time. But I've burned up all my time for this installment. I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.